Jake Morrison stood in the massive chamber and felt very small. The room was bigger than any building he had ever seen on Earth. The ceiling stretched so high that clouds could form up there. Around him sat creatures from dozens of different worlds, each one stranger than the last. The Zentari looked like giant blue lizards with 4 arms. Their leader, Chancellor Vexter, sat on a throne made of some kind of glowing crystal. His yellow eyes stared down at Jake with obvious disgust. Next to him sat the Chronari delegation. They looked like walking tanks covered in thick gray skin and sharp spikes. General Zeekmar kept making low growling sounds every time Jake moved. Jake had been preparing for this moment for 3 years. He carried with him the hopes of every human on Earth. In his hands was a simple datapad containing humanity's formal request to join the Galactic Council. After 50 years of peaceful contact with alien species, Earth was finally ready to take its place among the stars. Katie Sullivan stood beside him, trying to look calm. She had been Jake's assistant for 5 years and had never seen anything like this place. The other species in the room seemed to glow with their own light. Some floated in the air without any support. Others had tentacles instead of arms. A few looked almost human, but had skin that changed colors like a rainbow. Ambassador Morrison of the human species. Chancellor Vexter's voice boomed through the chamber. The words came from a small device that translated his alien language into English. You have requested an audience with this council to discuss your species' application for membership. Jake stepped forward and bowed slightly. Thank you, Chancellor. I am honored to speak before this distinguished body. Several of the aliens made sounds that might have been laughter, but not the good kind. Jake felt his face get warm, but kept his voice steady. Humanity has spent the last 50 years learning about your great civilization. Jake continued. We have followed every rule you gave us. We have not expanded beyond our solar system. We have shared our technology freely with council members who asked for it. We have proven that humans can be peaceful neighbors. Peaceful? General Zekmar stood up suddenly. He was 8 feet tall, and his voice sounded like rocks grinding together. Your species has fought wars on your own planet for thousands of years. You have weapons that could destroy entire continents. You call that peaceful? Jake had expected this question. General, it is true that humans have had conflicts in our past, but we have learned from our mistakes. We have not had a major war in over 30 years. We have worked together to solve problems that once seemed impossible. Problems you created for yourselves, Chancellor Vexter said coldly. Your species nearly destroyed your own planet with pollution and overpopulation. You expect us to trust beings who cannot even take care of their own world. We fixed those problems, Katie said suddenly. Everyone turned to look at her. Jake was surprised she had spoken, but proud of her courage. We cleaned our oceans. We restored our forests. We learned to live in harmony with our planet. Only after you almost killed it, a voice said from across the room. The speaker was a Velani, one of the most beautiful species Jake had ever seen. They looked like humans made of living silver with wings like butterflies. But this one's voice was full of sadness. We have watched your species for centuries. We have seen your wars, your cruelty, your destruction. Jake felt anger rising in his chest, but forced it down. We are not the same species we were centuries ago. We have grown. We have changed. Is that not something to be proud of? Growth through violence is not true growth, Chancellor Vexter declared. The Chronari learned discipline through countless generations of meditation and self-control. The Velani achieved harmony through centuries of careful cultivation of their arts and sciences. What have humans achieved except barely avoiding destroying themselves? We have achieved unity, Jake said firmly. Humans from every nation on Earth work together to prepare for this day. We have shared our music, our art, our stories with your people. We have offered our medical knowledge freely to help other species. We have asked for nothing in return except the chance to prove ourselves worthy. A new voice spoke up from the far side of the chamber. It was Counselor Yulinara, an elderly Villani with wings that shimmered like starlight. The humans have indeed shown remarkable progress in recent decades. Their medical research has helped save thousands of Villani children from a genetic disease that had plagued us for centuries. Their mathematical insights helped the Zentari solve complex engineering problems in their city construction. Chancellor Vexter's eyes flashed with anger. Counselor Yulinara, while we appreciate the humans' minor contributions, we must consider the larger picture. This council exists to maintain peace and stability throughout the galaxy. The human species represents chaos and unpredictability. We represent hope and determination, Jake said, his voice growing stronger. When other species said something was impossible, humans found a way to do it. When faced with problems that seemed unsolvable, we adapted and overcame them. That is not chaos. That is resilience. It is dangerous, General Zigmar growled. Species that change too quickly cannot be trusted. They cannot be predicted. How do we know that in 50 years you will not decide that peaceful cooperation is no longer in your interests? Jake looked around the chamber at all the alien faces, staring at him. Some looked curious, others seemed bored, but most appeared to have already made up their minds. He realized with growing horror that this was not really a hearing at all. It was a performance. The decision had already been made. Because, Jake said quietly, we are here asking to join you instead of trying to conquer you. Chancellor Vexter raised one of his forearms. A council will now vote on the human application for membership. He pressed a button on his throne, and lights began to appear above each delegation's seating area. Red lights. One after another, red lights filled the chamber like angry stars. Jake counted them as they appeared. The Centauri delegation, red. The Chronari Empire, red. The Stellar Commonwealth, red. The Crystal Collective, red. Katie grabbed Jake's arm. There must be a mistake, she whispered. Only one light remained unlit. Counselor Yulinara sat very still for a long moment, her silver face reflecting the red glow of all the other lights. Finally, her light turned green. One green light in a sea of red. The vote is concluded, Chancellor Vexter announced with satisfaction. The human application for membership in the Galactic Council is rejected by a vote of 37-1. The words hit Jake like a physical blow. He felt Katie's hand tighten on his arm. Furthermore, the Chancellor continued, humanity is humanity, hereby ordered to remain within the boundaries of their solar system. Any attempt to establish colonies or permanent presence beyond the orbit of your outermost planet will be considered an act of aggression against this council. Jake found his voice again. Chancellor, surely we can discuss this further. Perhaps there are conditions we could meet, requirements we could fulfill to change your decision. There are no conditions, General Zekmar said flatly. Your species is too volatile, too unpredictable to ever be trusted with the responsibilities of council membership. This decision is final. Counselor Yulinara stood up slowly. Her voice was soft, but carried clearly through the chamber. This council makes a grave mistake today. The humans possess qualities that could benefit us all. Their creativity, their determination, their ability to find solutions where others see only problems. We will regret this decision. The Velani are free to maintain whatever relationship they choose with the humans within the established boundaries, Chancellor Vexter said dismissively. This session is concluded. Jake and Katie walked out of the chamber in stunned silence. The long corridor seemed to stretch forever as they made their way back to their small ship. Other aliens they passed whispered among themselves and pointed at the two humans. "Jake," Katie said finally, "what do we tell them back home?" Jake stopped walking and looked out through a massive window at the stars beyond. Somewhere out there was Earth, waiting for news that would never come. "We tell them the truth," he said quietly. "We tell them that we are on our own." 20 years had passed since Jake Morrison walked out of that council chamber with his dreams crushed. Now he sat in his office on Luna Station, looking down at Earth through the massive window. His hair had turned gray, and his face showed the lines of 2 decades of hard work, but his eyes still burned with determination. Dr. Amanda Clark knocked on his door and entered without waiting for permission. She had been doing that for 15 years now, ever since she became Earth's head of advanced research. Her lab coat was stained with grease, and her short brown hair stuck up in odd directions. She looked like she had not slept in days, which was probably true. "Jake, you need to see this," she said, dropping a data pad on his desk. "The new drive system works. We just completed a test flight to Alpha Centauri and back in 6 hours. Jake picked up the pad and stared at the numbers. According to the data, the test ship had traveled over 4 light years in less time than it took to fly from New York to London in the old days. The Council's fastest ships took 3 days to make the same journey using their jump gate network. "Are you sure about this?" Jake asked. "Ben Rodriguez ran the calculations 5 times. Amanda said. "His engineering team has been working on this for 3 years. We do not need their jump gates anymore, Jake. We can go anywhere in the galaxy." Jake stood up and walked to the window. Below him, Earth looked different than it had 20 years ago. The brown smog that once covered the major cities was gone. Green forests covered areas that had been deserts when he was young. The oceans were blue again instead of gray. Humanity had spent the last 2 decades not just improving their technology, but healing their world. "What about the weapons research?" Jake asked. Amanda's face grew serious. "General Peterson wants to show you something. He is waiting in the secure section." They took a transport tube deep into Luna Station's restricted areas. Jake had helped design this base after the Council's rejection. If humanity was going to be trapped in their solar system, they would make the most of it. Luna Station was now larger than most cities on Earth, with over 2 million people living and working in its tunnels and domes. Admiral Sam Peterson was waiting for them in the military section. He was a big man with kind eyes and hands that looked like they could crush steel. He had been Earth's top military planner for the last decade, ever since the government realized they might need to defend themselves someday. "Jake, Amanda." He nodded to them. "Come and see what we have built." He led them through several security doors and into a control room overlooking a massive construction bay. Jake's breath caught in his throat. Floating in the zero-gravity chamber was a ship unlike anything he had ever seen. It was sleek and deadly, covered in armor that seemed to bend light around itself. Weapons ports lined its hull like the teeth of some great beast. "The Earth Defense Ship Titan," Peterson said with pride. "She is the first of 12 ships in her class. Each one carries enough firepower to destroy a moon." "Sam," Jake said quietly, "we promised we would remain peaceful." "We are peaceful," Peterson replied. "But we are not helpless. The Council rejected us and ordered us to stay in our system. They did not say we could not defend ourselves." Amanda pulled out another data pad. "Jake, there is something else. Captain Lisa Grant's exploration missions have found something troubling." Jake knew Lisa Grant well. She had been one of the first volunteers for the secret deep space missions that officially did not exist. Her ship, the Pioneer, had been exploring beyond the solar system's edge for 5 years, gathering intelligence about what was happening in Council space. "What did she find?" Jake asked. Strange energy readings from the outer galaxy, Amanda said. Something is out there, something the council species have never seen before. Lisa's team intercepted some of their communications. They are scared, Jake. Really scared. Peterson brought up a star map on the main screen. Red dots marked dozens of star systems along the galaxy's outer rim. These systems have gone dark in the last 2 years, he said. No communications, no. Trade ships, nothing. It is like they just disappeared. Jake stared at the map. Each red dot represented billions of lives, entire civilizations that had simply vanished. Do we know what is causing this? Not yet, Amanda said. But Lisa is investigating. Her ship is the only one fast enough to get close and escape if necessary. They left the military section and returned to Jake's office. Katie Sullivan was waiting for them. She had grown into a confident woman over the years, serving as Earth's unofficial ambassador to the few alien species that still maintained contact with humanity. The Velani still traded with Earth, though they had to do it secretly to avoid angering the council. Jake, I just received a message from Counselor Yulinara, Katie said. Her face was grim. She wants to meet with you privately. She says it is urgent. 3 days later, Jake found himself on a small asteroid station at the edge of the solar system. It was one of the secret meeting places that Yulinara had established years ago. The old Velani looked tired when she arrived. Her silver skin had lost some of its shine, and her butterfly wings moved slowly. Jake Morrison, she said in her musical voice, you look well. As do you, Counselor, Jake replied, though you seem troubled. Yulinara settled into a chair designed for her species. The galaxy is changing, old friend. Things are happening that the Council does not understand. Systems are dying, entire species are disappearing, and our leaders refuse to see the danger. We know about the missing systems, Jake said. Our scouts have been watching. Your scouts? Yulinara looked surprised. But the Council ordered you to remain in your system. Jake smiled sadly. The Council has no idea what humanity has become in the last 20 years. We honor the letter of their command, but not its spirit. We have ships that can travel faster than anything in the Council fleet. We have weapons that make their battleships look like toys. We have built cities on worlds they have never heard of. Then you know about the Devourers, Yulinara said. The name sent a chill through Jake. Is that what they are called? It is what my people call them, Yulinara said. They consume everything in their path. Planets, stars, entire solar systems. They convert matter into energy and use that energy to build more ships. Nothing we have tried can stop them. Jake leaned forward. How long before they reach the core worlds? At their current rate of advance, perhaps 5 years, Yulinara said. Maybe less. The Council refuses to admit how serious the threat is. Chancellor Vexter insists that conventional tactics will eventually work. General Zeekmar believes that a large enough fleet can overwhelm any enemy. They are wrong, Jake said simply. Yes, Yulinara agreed. They are wrong. And their stubbornness will doom us all. She stood to leave, then turned back to Jake. There may come a time when the Council realizes they need help. When that time comes, I hope humanity will remember that not all of us supported their rejection. After she left, Jake sat alone on the asteroid station, staring out at the stars. Somewhere out there, an unstoppable force was consuming the galaxy. Piece by piece, the same Council that had called humanity too dangerous now faced a threat they could not handle with their careful, predictable methods. He activated his communication device and called Amanda Clark. Amanda, I need you to accelerate all research projects. Whatever we are working on, we need it finished faster. Jake, what is wrong? Amanda's voice was concerned. War is coming, Jake said quietly. And when it arrives, the galaxy is going to need everything we have learned in the last 20 years. Back on Earth, President Helen Carter received Jake's report in her office in Geneva. The United Earth government had moved its capital to neutral ground after the Council's rejection, symbolizing humanity's new unity. She was the third president since the rejection, elected on a platform of human independence and self-reliance. Madam President, Jake's voice came through the secure channel. I recommend we begin immediate preparations for large-scale military operations outside our solar system. The Council will see that as an act of aggression, President Carter replied. The Council may not exist much longer if these Devourers continue their advance, Jake said. We have a choice. We can hide in our system and hope the threat never reaches us, or we can prepare to defend not just humanity, but the entire galaxy. President Carter was quiet for a long moment. Finally, she spoke. Do what you think is necessary, Jake. If the galaxy burns, humanity will not burn with it. Across the solar system, the massive construction projects that had been hidden for years began to accelerate. In the asteroid belt, shipyards that could build a dozen warships at once worked around the clock. On Mars, weapons factories that had been disguised as terraforming equipment switched to full production. In the outer system, training facilities prepared human crews for battles in deep space. The Council had rejected humanity as too dangerous and unpredictable. Now they would learn what humans could accomplish when they had 20 years to prepare and nothing left to lose. The galaxy had turned its back on Earth. Soon, Earth would have to decide whether to return the favor. Captain Lisa Grant stood on the bridge of the Pioneer, watching the dead system through the main view screen. Where the planet Xerion had once orbited, there was now only empty space and floating debris. The star itself looked wrong, dimmer than it should have been, as if something had been feeding on its energy. Captain, we are picking up massive energy readings from the outer system, said Lieutenant Mike Chun from the sensor station. Something big is out there. Lisa had been tracking the Devourers for 3 months now, following the trail of destroyed worlds across the galaxy's outer rim. Each system she found was the same. No life, no planets, just empty space where entire civilizations had once existed. The Pioneer was the only ship fast enough to stay ahead of the advancing threat and gather intelligence. Take us closer to those readings, Lisa ordered, but keep the jump drive ready. If we see anything that looks hostile, we leave immediately. The Pioneer moved silently through the dead system. Lisa's crew was small but experienced. They had volunteered for this mission, knowing they might never return home. Every member was a specialist in their field, handpicked for their ability to think quickly under pressure. Captain, Ensign Sarah Martinez, called from the communications station. I am detecting some kind of transmission from the energy source. It is not like anything in our databases. Put it on speakers, Lisa said. The bridge filled with the sound. That made everyone's skin crawl. It was not exactly music, and not exactly noise. It sounded like millions of voices speaking at once, but the words were in no language any human had ever heard. The sound seemed to reach into their minds and twist their thoughts. Turn it off, Lisa ordered quickly. Several crew members looked sick. Sarah, can you analyze that transmission without listening to it? I think so, Captain, Sarah said, her face pale. Give me a few minutes. The Pioneer continued its approach to the energy source. As they got closer, the object became visible. On their screens, Lisa felt her blood turn cold. It was a ship, but not like any ship she had ever seen. It was the size of a small moon, black as space itself, with surfaces that seemed to absorb light. Strange appendages extended from its hull like the tentacles of some deep-sea creature. Captain, Mike said in a whisper, the ship is scanning us. Lisa felt a chill run down her spine. All stop. Prepare for emergency jump. Before anyone could move, the view screen flickered and changed. Instead of showing the alien ship, it now displayed the interior of what looked like a vast chamber. The walls were covered in a substance that pulsed like living tissue. In the center of the chamber was a figure that had once been humanoid, but was now something else entirely. The creature's skin was gray and seemed to flow like liquid. Its eyes were pools of darkness that reflected no light. When it spoke, its voice came from everywhere at once, including inside their heads. "Small ones," the creature said. "You are not of the council species. You are something new." Lisa found her voice. "I am Captain Lisa Grant of the Earthship Pioneer. Who are you?" "We are what becomes of those who seek perfection through consumption." The creature replied, "We were once like you, bound by flesh and limited by individual thought. Now we are infinite. We are the Devourers. What do you want?" Lisa asked. "To consume, to grow, to perfect," the creature said. "Your species interests us. You are not in our records of council worlds. You hide well, but we have found you now." Sarah Martinez had been working quietly at her station. Now she looked up with terror in her eyes. "Captain, that transmission I detected earlier, it was not random. It was a signal. This ship just sent our location to dozens of other vessels." The alien creature smiled, revealing teeth that looked like black crystal. "You cannot hide from us now, small ones. We will find your worlds. We will consume your knowledge. We will add your distinctiveness to our own." Lisa did not wait to hear more. "Emergency jump, now." The Pioneer vanished from the dead system in a flash of light, leaving the Devourer ship alone among the debris of worlds. But the damage was done. The Devourers now knew about humanity, and they knew which direction the Pioneer had come from. Back in council space, the situation was growing desperate. Chancellor Vexter sat in his private chamber, staring at reports from the outer systems. In the past month alone, 12 more worlds had gone silent. Refugee ships were arriving at the core worlds daily, carrying stories of impossible destruction. General Zekmar entered the chamber without being announced. The old Kronari warrior looked tired, his gray skin marked with new scars from recent battles. "Chancellor, we have lost contact with the Fifth Fleet." "How many ships?" Vexter asked. 200 vessels, including the battleship Dominator, Zekmar replied. They encountered a Devourer force near the Rigel system. The last transmission was a distress call, then nothing. Vexter stood and walked to the window overlooking the capital city. Below, millions of beings from across the galaxy lived in fear. The Council had promised them protection, but that promise was becoming harder to keep each day. "What do your military advisors recommend?" Vexter asked. "Full retreat to the core systems," Zekmar said. "Establish a defensive perimeter around the most important worlds. Hope that the Devourers will be satisfied with the outer territories." "And if they are not satisfied?" Zekmar was quiet for a long moment. "Then we fight until there is nothing left to fight with." Across the galaxy, Telsina of the Valani Federation was having her own crisis meeting. The young counselor had taken over from her mother Yelinara 5 years ago, but she still sought the older woman's wisdom in difficult times. "The outer colonies are being evacuated," Telsina reported. "But our ships are not fast enough. The Devourers are advancing faster than we can retreat. How many have we lost?" Yelinara asked. 17 garden worlds in the last month, Telsina sighed, her voice breaking. "Worlds that took centuries to cultivate. The Devourers consume everything. They take the planets apart piece by piece and convert the matter into more ships." Yelinara sat in her meditation chamber, surrounded by the Chim chamber, art and music of her people. The Valani had spent thousands of years creating beauty, building worlds that were like living works of art. Now all of that was being destroyed by creatures that saw no value in anything except consumption. There is something else, Telsina sighed. Our scouts have detected human ships in the outer systems. Not one or two ships, but entire fleets. They are fighting the Devourers. Giulianara looked surprised. The humans are violating the Council's order to remain in their system? It appears they have been violating it for years, Telsina said. Their technology is far beyond what we thought. Possible. One of our observers saw a human ship destroy a Devourer vessel 3 times its size. On Earth, Dr. Elena Vasquez was working 18 hours a day in her laboratory. As the planet's Secretary of Science, she had access to all the intelligence. Reports from the outer systems. What she was learning about the Devourers terrified her. The enemy is not just a military threat, she explained to President Marcus Webb during their daily briefing. They are a technological plague. They do not just destroy civilizations, they absorb them. Every world they consume makes them stronger. And smarter. President Webb was a young man who had been elected on a platform of human expansion beyond the solar system. The Council's restrictions had made him popular among voters who wanted to see humanity take its place among the stars. Now he was facing a crisis that could destroy not just humanity, but the entire galaxy. What are our options? He asked. We can hide and hope they never find us, Elena said. Or we can fight. If we fight, we will be revealing our military capabilities. To the Council, Webb said. They will see us as a threat. Sir, Elena said quietly, if we do not fight, there may not be a council left to threaten us. The president was quiet for a long moment. Through his office window, he could see the lights of Luna Station orbiting above. In the distance, Mars glowed red in the darkness. Humanity had built a civilization among the stars, despite the Council's restrictions. Now that civilization faced its greatest test. Send word to Admiral Peterson, Webb said finally. Tell him to prepare the fleet for full deployment. If the galaxy is going to burn, we will not let it burn alone. Across human space, the preparations. That had been going on for 20 years, shifted into high gear. The hidden shipyards revealed themselves, launching vessels that were unlike anything the galaxy had ever seen. Soldiers who had trained in secret for decades prepared for battles that would determine the fate of every living thing in the galaxy. The Council had rejected. Humanity is too dangerous. Now they would learn what humanity could do when the survival of all life was at stake. Chancellor Vexter stood alone in his private office, staring at the communication device on his desk. He had been looking at it for 3 hours, unable to make the call he knew he had to make. Outside his window, the capital city of Zentara. Prime was in chaos. Refugee ships filled the sky, carrying survivors from the outer worlds that had fallen to the Devourers. The latest reports were worse than anything he had imagined. The Devourer fleet had consumed the entire Rigel sector in just 2 weeks. 50 billion lives were gone, converted into raw materials for the enemy's expansion. At their current rate of advance, they would reach the core worlds within a year. Finally, Vexter picked up the communication device and entered a frequency he had hoped never to use again. The signal traveled across space to a small relay station at the edge of human territory. After several minutes, a familiar face appeared on the screen. Jake Morrison looked older than Vexter remembered. His hair was completely gray now, and his face showed the lines of decades of hard work. But his eyes were still sharp, and they showed no surprise at receiving this call. Chancellor Vexter, Jake said calmly. It has been a long time. Ambassador Morrison, Vexter replied, struggling to keep his voice steady. I am contacting you on a matter of urgent importance to the entire galaxy. I assume this is about the Devourers, Jake said. We have been tracking their advance. For some time, Vexter felt a surge of hope. Then you understand the threat they represent. The Council is prepared to discuss a temporary alliance between our forces and yours. Jake was quiet for a moment. Chancellor, are you asking for humanity's help? The words stuck in Vexther's throat. For over 20 years, he had maintained that humans were too dangerous to be trusted with galactic affairs. He had led the vote that rejected their application and confined them to their solar system. Now he was forced to admit that he had been wrong. The situation is desperate, Vexther said finally. The Devourers have technology and tactics we cannot counter. We need all possible allies in this fight. What exactly are you offering? Jake asked. A temporary military alliance, Vexther said. Human ships would be allowed to operate in council space for the duration of the crisis. In return, you would assist in defending key council worlds from Devourer attacks. Jake leaned back in his chair. And after the crisis is over, we would return to the previous arrangement, Vexther said. Humans would withdraw to their solar system as before. No, Jake said simply. Vexther was surprised by the flat refusal. Ambassador, surely you understand that the survival of the galaxy is at stake. I understand perfectly, Jake said, which is why humanity will not accept a temporary alliance. If we are going to fight and die for this galaxy, we will do so as equals, not as hired soldiers who will be dismissed when the work is done. The Council will never agree to full membership for humans, Vexther said. Then the Council will face the Devourers alone, Jake replied. We have learned to survive without your approval for 20 years. We can continue to do so. The call ended, leaving Vexther staring at a blank screen. He had expected the humans to jump at the chance to help, to prove themselves worthy of Council acceptance. Instead, they had made demands he could not meet. 2 days later, the Council met in emergency session. The great chamber was half empty, as many delegations had fled to protect their home worlds. Those who remained looked tired and desperate. General Zikmar's latest military briefing had been devastating. The Council forces had lost every major engagement with the Devourers. The humans have refused our offer of temporary alliance, Vexther announced to the assembled delegates. They demand full membership in the Council as the price for their assistance. The chamber erupted in angry voices. Delegates shouted at each other in dozens of languages, while the translation system struggled to keep up. We will not negotiate with those primitive warmongers, declared Councillor Drex of the Stellar Commonwealth. We would rather die than admit we need help from humans. Perhaps dying is exactly what we will do, said Telsina from the Velani section. Her voice was calm, but her words cut through the chaos like a blade. Pride is a luxury we can no longer afford. General Zekmar stood up slowly. The old warrior's presence commanded respect even from those who disagreed with him. I have fought the Devourers for 6 months, he said. I have watched them destroy fleets that should have been unstoppable. Our conventional tactics are useless against them. Then we will develop new tactics, Councillor Drex insisted. There is no time, Zekmar replied. Every day we delay, they grow stronger. I have seen intelligence reports about human military capabilities. Their technology is decades ahead of ours. Their tactical thinking is unlike anything we have encountered. You want us to surrender our authority to a species we rejected as unfit for membership? Baxter asked. I want us to survive, Zekmar said bluntly. And if that means admitting we were wrong about the humans, then so be it. The debate continued. For hours. Some delegates argued for accepting the human terms. Others insisted on finding alternative solutions. In the end, they reached no decision except to adjourn and continue discussions the next day. That night, Telsina met secretly with several other moderate delegates in her private quarters. The group included representatives from 12 different species who had grown tired of the Council's stubborn pride. We cannot wait for the full Council to make a decision, Telsina said. By the time they swallow their pride, it may be too late. What are you suggesting? asked Counselor Mextar of the Aquatic Federation. Some of us should reach out to the humans independently, Telsina said. Offer them what they want in exchange for immediate military assistance. That would be treason, whispered Counselor Yindar of the Crystal Collective. It would be survival, Telsina replied. I would rather be a traitor in a living galaxy than a loyal citizen of a dead one. Meanwhile, on Earth, President Marcus Webb was holding his own emergency meetings. The human leadership had gathered in the secure conference room beneath the United Earth Government building in Geneva. Admiral Peterson, Dr. Elena Vasquez, and Ambassador Cady Sullivan were all present, along with several other key officials. The Council's offer is exactly what we expected, Webb said. They want us to fight their battles for them, then go back to being second-class citizens when they us. War is over. Our scouts report that Devourer forces are now less than 6 months from the core worlds, Admiral Peterson said. If we are going to act, we need to do it soon. The question is whether we should act at all, said Secretary of Defense Tony Martinez. The Council made it clear 20 years ago that they do not want us. Why should we save them? Cady Sullivan had been quiet throughout the meeting. Now she spoke up. Because it is the right thing to do. The room fell silent. Cady had been Jake Morrison's assistant during the original rejection, and her opinion carried weight with everyone present. The Council leaders who rejected us were wrong, Cady continued. But there are billions of innocent people in Council space who had nothing to do with that decision. Are we going to let them die because of the mistakes their leaders made? Cady has a point, Dr. Vasquez said. We also have to consider that if the Devourers consume the entire galaxy, they will eventually come for us. It is better to fight them now, with allies, than later by ourselves. President Webb stood and walked to the window. Outside, the lights of Geneva sparkled in the darkness. Somewhere beyond those lights, the greatest war in galactic history was about to begin. Send word to all our fleet commanders, Webb said finally. We will offer the Council one more chance to accept our terms. If they refuse, we will do what we think is best for the galaxy, with or without their permission. And if they accept? Admiral Peterson asked. Webb turned back to face the room. Then we will show them what humans can do when we fight for something we believe in. Across human space, the hidden fleets that had been building for 20 years began to move. Ships emerged from asteroid bases and deep space stations, carrying weapons and technology that would astound the galaxy. The species that had been rejected as too dangerous was about to prove exactly how dangerous they could be when the survival of all life was at stake. The human fleet emerged from hyperspace at the edge of the Zentara system, like a storm made of metal and light. Admiral Sam Peterson stood on the bridge of the flagship Constitution, watching as nearly 300 human vessels took formation around his command ship. Each vessel carried technology that had been developed in secret over 20 years of isolation. Admiral, we are receiving multiple hails from Council forces, reported Communications Officer Nancy White. They want to know who we are and what our intentions are. Tell them we are here to save their galaxy, Peterson replied, whether they want us to or not. 3 days earlier, President Webb had made the decision that changed everything. The Council had refused humanity's terms for alliance, but the Devourer fleet was now less than a week away from Zentara Prime. Humanity would not stand by and watch billions die because of political pride. On the surface of Zentara Prime, Chancellor Vexter received the news that human ships had entered his system with a mixture of relief and anger. The massive Devourer fleet had been detected at the system's edge just hours before the humans arrived. He was trapped between two forces he could not control. Sir, the human admiral is requesting permission to coordinate our defense, reported his aide. He says their ships can deploy in support of our fleet positions. Vexter stared at the tactical. displays showing his ships and the human vessels. The Council fleet looked impressive with over 500 ships, but he knew they had failed in every encounter with the Devourers. The human fleet was smaller, but their ships looked different, deadlier. "Grant them permission," Vexter said finally. "But make it clear this does not represent formal acceptance of their membership demands." In space above the planet, Admiral Peterson coordinated with the remaining Council forces. General Zikmar had survived the previous battles and was eager to work with anyone who might have new ideas for fighting the Devourers. "Human Admiral, our conventional tactics have failed completely," Zikmar transmitted. "The Devourers adapt to our strategies within minutes. How do you propose we fight them?" "General, humans have been fighting impossible odds for our entire history," Peterson replied. "We do not rely on conventional tactics. We improvise." Captain Lisa Grant's ship Pioneer was the first to detect the Devourer fleet as it approached the inner system. The enemy force was massive, over 800 vessels of various sizes, including several of the moon-sized ships she had encountered before. "Admiral, the Devourer fleet is moving faster than expected," Lisa reported. "They will reach the planet in 18 hours. "Understood, Captain," Peterson replied. "All ships prepare for Operation Swarm." The human fleet suddenly scattered in all directions, breaking into small groups that moved in seemingly random patterns. The Council forces watched in confusion as their new allies appeared to abandon any coordinated formation. "What are they doing?" Vexter demanded from his command center. "I believe they are implementing chaos theory," replied Dr. Elena Vasquez, who had arrived on Zentara Prime as humanity's scientific advisor. "Instead of predictable formations, they are using mathematical randomness to prevent the Devourers from adapting to their tactics." The Devourer fleet entered the inner system in perfect formation, their ships moving with mechanical precision. The lead vessels began scanning the defending forces, analyzing their positions and weapons capabilities. But the constantly shifting human formations confused their targeting systems. Commander Ryan Brooks led the first attack wave in his fighter squadron. His 12 ships moved like a school of fish, weaving between the larger vessels while firing concentrated bursts at specific targets. Instead of trying to destroy the massive Devourer ships, they focused on smaller components and weapon systems. "Target their sensor arrays first," Brooks ordered his pilots. "Blind them, then hit their communication systems." The human fighters were faster and more maneuverable than anything the Devourers had encountered. Their weapons were precisely calibrated to disrupt the alien technology rather than simply destroy it. Within minutes, several Devourer ships were firing at empty space, their targeting systems confused by the human tactics. Colonel Maria Santos commanded the ground forces that had secretly landed on several asteroids throughout the system. Her soldiers used portable weapons that could punch through Devourer armor, but more importantly, they carried devices that Dr. Amanda Clark had developed based on the intelligence gathered by Captain Grant. "All units deploy the disruption charges," Santos ordered. "Remember, we are not trying to destroy these ships. We are trying to break their hive mind connection." The charges were small devices that generated specific electromagnetic frequencies. Dr. Clark had discovered that the Devourers used quantum entanglement to coordinate their fleet actions. By disrupting these connections, the human forces could turn the enemy's greatest strength into a weakness dot as the disruption charges activated. Throughout the system, something unexpected happened. The Devourer ships began to slow down and move erratically. Without their hive mind coordination, individual vessels started making their own decisions, often conflicting with the actions of nearby ships. "It is working," Dr. Vasquez reported. Excitedly, the Devourer fleet is losing coordination. Their formation is breaking apart. Admiral Peterson saw the opportunity and seized it. All ships Concentrate fire on the command vessels. Take out their leaders while they are confused. The combined human and council fleets struck at the heart of the Devourer formation. The massive command ships, no longer protected by perfect coordination with their escorts, found themselves vulnerable for the first time in their campaign of destruction. Captain Grant's Pioneer led a strike force directly at the largest Devourer ship, the same vessel that had discovered humanity's existence months earlier. Using their advanced engines, the human ships moved faster than the alien vessels could track. "Lisa, you have one shot at this," Admiral Peterson transmitted. "That command ship is the key to their entire fleet." "Understood, Admiral," Grant replied. "All ships, target the central processing core. Fire everything we have." The combined firepower of 30 human ships struck the Devourer command vessel simultaneously. But instead of explosive weapons, they used Dr. Clark's quantum disruption technology. The alien ship's hull began to glow and pulse as its internal systems fought against the disruption. On the surface of Zentara Prime, Chancellor Vexter watched the battle through his command center displays. The human tactics were unlike anything he had ever seen. Where Council forces relied on formation fighting and overwhelming firepower, the humans used speed, confusion, and precise strikes against critical systems. "Sir, the Devourer fleet is retreating," his tactical officer reported. "Their command ship has been disabled, and the rest are falling back to the outer system." Telsina stood beside the Chancellor, her silver face reflecting the light from the displays. "They did it," she said quietly. "The humans actually stopped the Devourers." "This is just one battle," Baxter replied. "The war is far from over." "But it proves the humans were right," Telsina said. "They think differently than we do. They see solutions where we see only problems. We need them, Chancellor. The galaxy needs them." In space, the human fleet regrouped around the disabled Devourer command ship. Admiral Peterson ordered boarding. Parties to investigate the alien technology and search for survivors who might provide intelligence about the enemy's plans. Captain Grant led the first boarding team into the alien vessel. What they found inside shocked them. The ship was not just a machine. It was a living entity that had consumed the minds and bodies of an entire civilization. The Devourers were not conquerors. They were a plague that turned their victims into more of themselves. "Admiral, you need to see this," Grant transmitted. "The Devourers are not what we thought they were. They are the remains of a species that tried to achieve perfection through technology. They consumed themselves, and now they want to consume everything else." Dr. Vasquez worked frantically to analyze the alien technology. Her discoveries would prove crucial in developing permanent defenses against the Devourer threat. But for now, the immediate crisis was over. President Webb arrived on Zentara Prime 2 days after the battle. The Council had finally agreed to emergency sessions to discuss humanity's role in the galaxy's defense. But the political situation had changed dramatically. "The old order is finished," Telsina explained to Webb and his delegation. "Half the Council worlds have declared independence from the central authority. They want to form new alliances based on mutual respect rather than hierarchical control." Katie Sullivan, now serving as Earth's primary diplomat, worked with moderate council members to establish a new galactic government. The structure they created was based on the principles humanity had developed during their years of isolation. Cooperation instead of domination. Diversity instead of conformity. Jake Morrison, now in his 70s but still sharp, addressed the final session of the old Galactic Council. 20 years ago, you rejected humanity because you said we were too dangerous and unpredictable. You were right. We are dangerous to those who would harm the innocent. We are unpredictable to those who rely on rigid thinking. But we are also loyal to those who treat us as equals.